There it went. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Welcome.
everybody.
I'm Teri, holding your space, and my guest today is Nancy Jean's Garden. Actually,
Hello.
my co-host because she's streaming too.
Yeah,
So,
we keep doing this. We keep meeting on Mondays. So
yeah, Monday morning. Is it? You're the same time zone, aren't you, or is it
yeah,
noon? Yeah,
I'm just directly south of you, my dear.
that's right. It's weird when some parts of Mexico are just directly south. Like I think Cabo is.
Yeah, but
And
they don't change their time zones, so they go through.
yeah,
Jeffrey
they're
and I go through that. Half the year we're on the same time, and half the year we're not.
yeah, yeah. So, welcome everybody. Today we're talking about creating happiness from within, intuitive readings and talk with Nancy Jean and I, and doing mirror work as well, like looking in the mirror and what we see,
Mm-hmm.
and transforming ourselves if we want to, or changing things. So, Louisa Hayes did a lot of work with mirror work,
Right.
which was really incredible. And I kind of grew up when I was in the school in metaphysics. That was one of our things. We would stare for 10 minutes a day in the mirror. And the thing that I notice the most now when I stare in the mirror, besides maybe a hair that's on my chin
Mm-hmm.
or something, is I look at my eyes and I see other people's eyes sometimes. Like I see eyes from different lifetimes or future lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting. And sometimes consequently, when sometimes other people are mirrors, and I'll look at other people's eyes and I'm like, your eyes don't belong in that body. Like you can tell that they're
Mm-hmm.
not of this earth. Anyway, so interesting. Want to say hi to Warrior Widow, Barbara Berkman. Hello, beautiful. Debbie, Three Shifting Veils. Hi, Kendra.
Barbara,
Good to see
your
you.
grid's in the mail.
Oh,
I
nice.
mailed it Saturday.
Yeah. Hi, Mousy. Hi, Warrior Widow. She wants to know what mirror work is. It's pretty cool. We'll talk a lot about it, and it's also sometimes other people are mirrors, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and particularly twin flames. That's why twin flames are not always a lot of fun. Debbie, you did that in metaphysical class too. Yeah, staring at the mirror and staring at the flame, at the candle. Hi,
Yeah,
Sonia.
I do candles. I don't do mirrors so much. I don't have
Yeah.
many great mirrors in my house to do it with. But the other part I think about looking at a mirror is if you're looking at a mirror, you're understanding you're the solution. It's when people are like looking at the screen, expecting one of us to pop out and be their solution. And that's not going to work.
Yeah. Or politics or
Oh
um,
God, no. That's when it all fell apart in November. And and I felt very bad for the readers who felt like they needed to come up and do a mea culpa. No, you asked me to read the cards and I read the cards.
yeah.
And and the universe did a switcheroo on us. Um, but at that point, the universe did what I had been talking about and sensing, and the reason I designed the garden the way I did, and I'll show my garden reading, and you're going to see all over it. It's up to us, guys. Um, Everybody wanted one of us to have the answer, so they didn't have to think about it. So I didn't have to be responsible. And as long as you keep thinking, oh, Teri's going to swoop in at the last minute and give me the one last bit of enlightenment I need to be able to make it from here to there, you're wrong. All that has to come from inside you. You have to accept the voice, you have to accept the image, you have to accept the responsibility. And I talked to a couple of readers and I said, quit beating yourself up.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
trust me, they're not sending me for the lady who I did a grid for, one of the first grids I built. It was in her office and she needed $350,000 to be able to keep her company independent. She was one of the first people I knew that used 3D printing. They get exact things from facial reconstructionist surgeons, they would make the mold they needed to put in the surgery so the person's own bone could grow back over it so they could rebuild their face. That's what her company did. And before the crash of '08, her company had made molds. If you said, I want a mold of a turkey, it would make molds of turkeys. But anyway, her thing morphed into this business, and it ended up she needed to make this money. Well, after COVID hit, I hadn't heard from her. She called me up one day, and I said, did you get your, well, within a week of her putting her grid up, she got her first 100,000 from a person she went to college with. They went out to a dinner, and she just started talking about her capital campaign. And he took her aside and he said, I don't have the money today, but I can send you 50, and then I'll get you another 50 by the end of the summer. And she came in to tell me, and I said, so do you think your grid's working? And she said, yeah, I think it's working. Anyway, so she called, I talked with her, and I said, how's it going? And she said everything. I said, you still run the company? She said, yeah, we moved from where you visited me. We have a bigger plant north. And I said, how'd the grid work? And she said, well, she said, I ended up raising $750,000. And I said, now, mind you, I didn't have that woman sending me a percentage, because my grid would have done her crap if she hadn't done all the hard work to make it work. So if I don't get a percentage for when they get 750,000, I'm sure as hell not going to take the grief because something doesn't work out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So auspicious, but it is that putting in the work to create the alchemy.
Well, I could build you the most marvelous grid in the world. But if you're not out there, she didn't have the crew she had, if she didn't have the intellectual capabilities, if she didn't have the retired physician who worked with her on how to get all that together. I mean, and she did all that. I mean, the universe handed her the pieces and she knew how to use them. And she's an absolutely fascinating lady. But anyway, I'm going to go to this reading that I did in the garden.
Warrior Widow's asking, hi, Nadia.
What's a grid? I'll show you a grid, but I'm going to show you what you're going to see now is a garden. I should have come up with another letter that everything was. But anyway, this is the garden, and you're not seeing it quite well. You're seeing the parts you need. I'm going to see if I can raise this up enough to. Oh. Anyway, it's a big square of cloth, and it's got all these spaces on it. And this is something that 3 years ago, my guides came in and said, you have to build this. And I had so many of them, and I sold the last ones out. And for those of you who bought the last gardens, yes, I am putting the curriculum together to learn how to read this. But what this says is you throw the stone, you throw the stones in the garden, and then you read. And one Saturday, I channeled in what stones mean in different spaces. And we're going to start with the present because that's right over here. That's what that says, present. And the stones, in this case, it's a grounding stone, pyrite, and sodalite, which is a clarity stone. And this grounding stone means values are being purified right now. My question was, what is this audience going to be needing to hear about? That your values are being purified right now. And clarity is going to come to you from a variety of paths. So there's not going to be one aha. There's going to be a lot of aha things happening. And then this is the amethyst, and that's a spirit within us. The stones are body, mind, spirit, grounding, and clarity. The spirit is in path forward, and it says balance your energy right now for moving ahead. And that's what we're talking about. Understanding where your energy comes from and understand what you're seeing. And then for the other two stones, the body and the mind, are in earth. And this is the shamanic earth, fire, water, air. And earth is where things come out of, or out of the east. This is where things emerge from. And for us, it's physical changes are coming right now. And final thoughts to the situation are coming. So these stones, and they, trust me, when you spread them all out here, they don't always make all this much sense. These stones are telling us that right now, the most important one in this is that our values are being purified. That how we view the world and what we see in the world is being purified right now. And that's what we're talking about look in that mirror. What do you see? What's there? And whether it's a candle, a mirror, and make sure it's your own vision. I can't tell you how important I feel it is right now for people to deal from their own truth. And trust me, there are days when I wake up and I'm going, I don't think I like today. I don't think I like yesterday. I'm not altogether sure about tomorrow, but there's no place else for me to go. So I best make the best of it. Or I wake up going, oh, this is great. This is wonderful. I know what I'm doing. But I can tell you the garden, what I like about the garden is when I created it, when I was told I was going to create a divination tool, I have a thing about tarot, and I've read tarot since I was 12, and I really love tarot. I love oracle cards. I love all that stuff. I love pendulums. But there's a lot of duality that comes from the old order that's built in those tools, because the people who created and were seeing those tools, that's all they'd ever known. And I've always known that there was more than the black and white. I've lived my life in the gray. And I'm so glad to see y'all are joining me. It's not comfortable, but it's a lot better. So if right now we are at such a change point, and if we accept the change point and accept it in our own heart and move it into our own consciousness, each and every one of us is a point of light that is moving the world to a different place. And I know right now looks absolutely miserable. But as I keep telling people, when you hear something that really freaks you out, write it down on a piece of paper and go back in 48 hours and see if it's still the news, because you're going to find out it isn't. Because having worked in that other mundane world that we don't want to talk about, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, and a lot is what can we put in front of you so you don't see what we're doing over here. And the more we direct positivity within ourselves, the more we're going to pull out people that are positive. I don't know how many of you watched, and I'll use him because I consider him the brightest light we've had. And I don't think what he did was political. What Cory Booker was, he stood up and said, this is what we all need to do. We need to speak our truth for 24 hours, except he's spoken for 26. But, I mean, and it's not just him. There's other people that are showing up. There's some channelers that are showing up saying, yeah, you can sit here and wallow in pity, or you can say, hell no, that's not happening to me. And this Saturday, we saw more Americans getting up saying, this ain't, I have a woman who follows me, who takes my garden classes and stuff. She lives in an area of Alaska. And I think she said that the area she lives in has somewhat less than 10,000 people really considered in that geographic center. They had 3,000 of them show up to a rally in the middle of nowhere, and it's cold. I mean, that's what made me, it's cold up there.
So. Yeah. It's amazing. And it's interesting how everybody's looking at it too. And we kind of talked about that this morning in Meditation Tribe. And Metatron's been coming in a lot.
Right.
And of course he's all about that high heart energy and being your divine self and standing in your power, even literally, because he's such a big angel when we look at in a linear way,
Mm-hmm.
his height, and just walking with him and flying with him and being with him, and we're he treats us like equals. I mean, he's pretty cool with us, and I feel like we have that power. We know what we're doing, and we know how to change our future and change our past
Mm-hmm.
as we come
Because
into 5D.
the physical, what you and I see and hear and touch and all that stuff
Mhm.
every day, that's not really who we are. We're a ball of energy. And I have stood energetically outside my body and seen the whole universe. And I've realized the energy that I am can shrink down to an atom, or it
Mhm.
can expand up to look like a tall creature looking at all the galaxies out there floating around in space and feeling their power and feeling their song. And I saw Warrior Widow has that they found her ley lines, and it's Ley, dear. It's not Lay.
I
Ley
saw.
lines is where you fall down. Ley is the energy lines in your backyard. And they are getting bigger and wider. And that is what the elementals use to move around the earth.
Yeah. And
And
and that's
I have a tree that marks where the ley line is by me, and his name is Hogarth. And I do occasionally do stories about him. There's another reader who's coming in from out of state who wants to go visit Hogarth.
oh, nice. I love that.
I know. And when you're on a ley line, you can feel the power. And you're right. There can be bad ones. They're not. You can use crystals to redirect them. So if it's heading towards your house, you can find it with the pendulum, and you can put a quartz out there and go that way. Put a quartz point out there and say, you go visit, and you, like you said, they visit your grumpy neighbors. But if you have ley lines under your house or going through your house, they can either hype your energy up so much that your body has difficulty working with it, or they can really make you sick. I mean, there is a thing about that. But ley lines don't usually try to bother us. They try to leave us alone.
Yeah. Like sometimes you'll walk through an area and you'll notice a void of energy. Like, the energy is kind of, even though energy is always in motion and it's
Mm-hmm.
always here, it's like, I think it's more a void of crystalline energy.
Right.
Right. And so it's a lot different, and you guys have probably been there. You'll walk into a room, or you'll walk down a path and, at the park or in the mountains, and you're like, "Something's not quite right here," and
Yeah.
you really notice it. Yeah.
And the ley lines are actually a web of energy that surrounds the earth. And I used to be in contact, and I still can get into contact with a guy who lives in South Africa, and he goes around fixing ley lines. That's his job, and he reunifies them, because where they get torn or they shift or they get off of each other, or the energy, it messes the energy up if it's not flowing right, and they need to all be connected because of the photonic energy that's entering the earth right now. It's going to overload our core, and the core is going to ring like a bell. And when it rings like a bell, if the ley lines aren't firm around you, it's you're going to feel it worse. It's not going to be as good. And if the ley lines are all torn, that's where that energy can leak back out into space. We are under such incredible, and have been since 2017, under such incredible photonic shifts and energetic shifts from outer space, all of which precede.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The crystalline energy out there. Oh, what were you saying?
No,
All
no.
of it precede.
Um, when she talks about energy bouncing off the walls, I go to a crystal shop to buy the crystals for my grids, and I will show you a grid before we get off today. And um, I time my things. I won't spend more than 45 minutes in that store, because they have some big crystals and they have lots of interesting little crystals. But I have to get myself geared up to go in there, because I feel the energy off the stones so much.
Yeah. And it's kind of another way of sensing things, you guys. Like sometimes when you were younger, maybe you'd go into a candle shop and you'd smell too many candles and it would make you nauseous. It's kind of like that. Like you'll go in and you'll feel so much energy.
Yeah, when
Um,
my daughter was little, you had to stand beside her at the Bed Bath and Beyond. She would try every fragrance in the place, and she would be in the back seat of the car, and we'd have all the windows open, and we're going, "We can't ever take you to that store again."
Right? Yeah. Yeah, but, harmonic convergence, that the magnetic core of the earth is so important right now.
Mhm.
We're going there a lot in our meditations, and I feel like that's really a space of healing and pranic
Mhm.
healing or harmonic healing, and you're also going in there and you're, releasing the old aspects of old lifetimes or old karmic ties that we had perhaps from last week or 2
Mhm.
lifetimes ago or 5 generations ago. And then we're picking out what we want. We're grabbing what we want now. So it's definitely a time of awareness. I was able to watch a show, White Lotus last night, and it was
Oh,
the final episode that was phenomenal. And I watched it with awareness. And sometimes I cannot watch shows like that.
mhm.
You know, as a rule, I don't watch things that have very negative energy, but this is such an art thing. I love the energy around it. Anyway, so it was interesting that I didn't get all into it, and I was kind of watching myself watch it. You know, when you're that's really
Mhm.
witnessing awareness when you're watching yourself watch things.
I watched The Bondsman.
Oh, I looked at that. I think now that I can be removed a little more, I'm gonna try it.
Make sure you get real removed.
Okay.
I mean, I'm watching it and I'm going, is this good for me or is this bad for me? You know? And
Yeah.
finally, my guides just said, you know how this stuff works, so this is not going to hurt you. But um, you watch people get turned into demons. It's interesting. The demons are
Oh.
breaking out of hell, and this
Oh.
this the bondsman dies, and the devil sends him back into this life to kill the demons because he's been dead. He can kill them,
Oh.
and
Oh. Yeah, I saw the beginning of that or some not the beginning, but the early thing. Um, let's
I'm
see.
going to show a grid before we go to something else. So that
Yeah. Oh, good.
okay, this is a grid I keep here all the time because I was challenged by a guy named Tim Walter, who's in England, and he works with Earth energies. And he said, "Why don't you build a grid for the world?" And I go, "That's not pretentious at all." So 2 years ago, I built a grid for the world, and I had two other readers up, Jeffrey from Ripe Color and Dr. Gale. They each picked a card to figure out what form we were going to come up with. And then I built it. And then on New Year's 2 years ago, Danny, Dr. Gale, Jeffrey, and I fired it up and got it going.
Wow.
And what a grid is there's a center. And then this is based on the Merkaba and the heart energy of the earth. And if you understand what a Merkaba is, this really does kind of make sense. But that's a purple fluorite. And then there's some carnelian and some gold stones. And then there's honey calcites. And then there's green adventurine, which brings in good luck. And then there's green moss agate, which is an incredibly powerful stone. It's like all the energy of the world working its way through. This is blue lace agate discs, blue lace agate stones on top of mother of pearl. And then all around the edge are fluorites and some quartz. And when you get a grid on the back, it explains what each of these stones is about and what it's for. But and we built this and we were like all excited, except the stone in the middle when I brought it out last year to look at it at New Year's. and this was after the election, the stone that's the center is breaking up. It hasn't been hit or anything else. This was solid purple. And when I can't show it to you because I don't have good cameras, but if you tilt it on its side, you can see that there's occlusions. Eventually, this stone's breaking up, and nobody's touching it except me like that. I mean, we're not doing anything. I have no idea. So Tim and I talked about it, and then I called Danny, and I said, I don't mean to scare everybody, but the stone at the center of our earth grid is breaking up, and I think it just portends change. But
I do too.
and grids don't know. It's the only grid I know of, unless somebody's got one that and told me that breaks up. So just saying.
Wow. And I know when you use some of your wands for healing, or some of your points when you're doing crystal healing, then they will start to get inclusions in them too.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, mine that has inclusions, when I got this crystal, and you can see all the inclusions in it now, it was a clear wand.
Yeah.
And every time since 2017 that we've gone through a major earth shift, it's gotten all kinds of stuff in it that it didn't have before.
Excuse me.
That's how you kind of tell.
Why is everything vibrating when you put it down? We can hear the harmonic convergence every time you set something down.
I don't know.
Everything's going a little cray-cray lately. Somebody was asking about finding your ley lines, and that's a really good question.
Okay. The easiest way I know to find ley lines is, let me see if I can get the slide to you, Teri.
Oh, okay. Yeah, send it to me.
Yeah, okay. Hogarth, my Hogarth tree. He's there. He's on the, can you set him up? Yes.
There he is.
See all those lumps and bumps on him? Every other tree in that line, and see this line that's going around him. This is when Nancy was stupid and couldn't find the ley lines. I woke up one morning and I went out, and I knew that he was connected to ley lines. I went out, and literally all this grass around him, and both, it's like a line that went through him, had turned bright yellow. I mean, my guide said, we painted the yellow brick road. That's where he is. I'm not guaranteeing that will happen to you. But if you see it, and this tree has an enormous, these are called burls. And what burls are is when there's so much energy under the tree, it can't just grow like a normal tree. It grows things out all over. It's kind of like tumors.
Yeah, our faces.
So if you see, if you live where there's lots of real trees, like in any place but Texas, unless you go to East Texas, and you find a tree with bumps on it, go 360 around, and you'll find another tree within sight that has bumps on it, and you'll find another one the other way. Those trees are telling you where the ley line is lying. The other way you can do it is
use your wands.
You can use your wands. You can go out and, if you have dowsing rods, you can go out and they will help you find it. You can use a pendulum.
Yeah.
And you can walk your whole property, and you may not have there may not be a tree out there. There may not be plants getting distorted, but it's happening.
Yeah. And so those are really interesting, the ley lines. And there's another grid in the atmosphere of the earth as well. And some people call that Metatron's grid. Some people just call that grid. And that's kind of the 5D when we go into 5D. But that's where we go a lot of times in meditation. We'll go and hang out on the grid to recharge. It's a good space if you feel like you just lost all your energy to go and recharge. And those grid lines that go around the planet. And you'll find a lot of galactics and probably your soul tribe up there too.
Right.
So that's what they always show me. Like I always go to the same place and everybody recognizes me and I recognize them. And now Meditation Tribe has been there so many times that we just go in our own group. But we've got a lot of friends up there. Also, don't discount, like, this is going like this because I've got a tree in the right outside that bedroom window,
Mm-hmm.
my auntie tree, and she's always there, and they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of pointing me to her. But also look at your portals because a lot of areas in your home might have a portal. I have one in my shower, which is a
Mm-hmm.
weird place, but we talk about that, how bathrooms are very sacred. The
Mm-hmm.
water, the releasing, the cleansing. I mean, it's, and the mirrors. I never
Mm-hmm.
thought about that, the mirrors too. So, yeah, it's huge. Oh, Warrior Widow has trees all through the line in her house and an orange tree. Wow. Yeah, those oranges must be really abundant and good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. My tree lost a couple of limbs in the past, I don't know, 10 years that I've been in this house. And one of them, it's funny. So the arborist that I found was amazing. And he's a tree person. And he came in and he said, because a lot of people said, "Oh, you got to cut that tree down," and he said, "That's the best tree I've ever seen. It has the best energy." He knew trees,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "Okay, you're my guy." And his whole crews that came in to trim my tree were like, "Oh my god, this is the best tree. Can I bring my hammock over and sleep here?" And
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they were
and
just so funny.
tree people are really interesting because if they're really good, they understand trees need to breathe. And if you look at the branches in the tree, they're like lungs, But you have to cut space. You have to cut. There can be too much dense growth in the inner part of a tree, and if they weed that out, then the tree's not going to fall over. I had a really good tree guy that went to church with me, and he came over, and when I bought this house that had gazillion trees, and it had not had its yard taken care of in so long. It had a wisteria vine that was you could put your hands around. I mean, and he he came over, he cut the wisteria down. He said it was strangling parts of the tree, but then he cleared out the center part of the tree. And one of my neighbors said, "Aren't you going to take that old tree down? It's been there." I said, "No." And we had an ice storm the next winter, and all my neighbors who didn't trim their trees regularly, all their trees fell
Yeah.
because they were wow. And
Yeah, he had trimmed, one of my limbs, in a certain way that, when we had a big or ice storm, it fell exactly between the houses. All it did was scratch one, uh, screen, a
mm-hmm,
window screen, about a half an inch or an inch, and I said, "Oh my god, we were so lucky," and he said, "No, that's exactly how we trimmed it."
yeah, they know what they're doing if they're good
Yeah,
at what they do.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, they cut a bunch of the wood up because I had a wood burning stove in my house that, thank God, because the winter we had the horrible ice storm. We
Oh,
were the
yeah,
last house that was
horrible.
occupied. We were the
Yeah.
last house that was occupied on our street because we had heat from the stove.
Was that just the one that happened a few years ago, or was that
It was when the Super Bowl was in Dallas. Let's have it in Dallas where the weather's not crappy. Well,
yeah, Oxford cat, I love your name. I have a rose tree that will bring 30 to 50 blooms at a time. I have to cut it back constantly. It's definitely on a ley line.
yep, it's wired up and ready to go.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Debbie, let me see this. I think I might be opening another portal. I did a Zen time with the fire pit at night, and there's a purple fog and with teal lightning over and behind the fire. It is beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. New portals are opening all the time, you guys, especially right now. Let me move our things. Don't get dizzy here, people. Well, while I find where we're
Okay,
supposed to be, there we
there we
are.
are.
And I think Sally's here, Sal Rods, and Sal Rods has her pool is like a portal, and
Mm-hmm,
her land is all her land is a portal.
mm-hmm.
It's just, she has so many beings that are coming in and out of really in and out of the earth, I think, right there.
Well, after the last solstice.
Mhm.
No, equinox. The spring equinox. They're really the I talk and work with the elementals, and I have a beautiful tall. There, she looks like a fairy, but she's way bigger. I mean, she ain't Tinkerbell. And then she has a little elf guy called, and I call him Little One because he's got one of those Welsh names I'll never be able to say.
Yeah.
And I actually managed to get a picture of them, and I have a dragon named Cecil who comes and takes me away when I need to go visit that part of the world. But they've been telling me we're on our way, and I built a little couple fairy cottages out in my one big pot outside my house. I don't have a lot of ground to build on, so I have to kind of use the green spaces around me, and they sort of resent you taking them over. But
Yeah.
if y'all saw my thing about painting gold stones, just taking a river rock and painting it gold for abundance, you can put those out near your ley line trees. They like that.
Yeah. You can give them pennies, glitter,
Mm-hmm.
crystal. Oh, Sally, are the elementals talking about me? Everybody's talking about you, Sally. Chasing cats. I feel like the aurora borealis released a bunch of energy.
Oh, we've had this the sun. I watch a thing about it's kind of weather report for the sun about
Mhm.
how it's spewing stuff at us, and every time it does, um, there's an earthquake. There's a volcano blows
Oh,
its top again.
yeah. Talk to Diana. Her body is so in tune. She can't get out of bed when we're getting a earthquake. There's also a lot of other things going on with that too. Yeah, giving them space for sure, Sally. Oh, Barbara painted the gold stones. Nice.
Very good. Yeah, put 8 of them outside your front door, and it's a pillar for abundance.
Yeah.
The other the other thing in the same time that I always remember after I do that it's a feng shui thing. After I do that, I always remember I'm supposed to keep the lid down in my toilet because good energy will go out your toilet. It'll drain out your toilet. So
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
problem is I know how to do that consciously, but at 3 in the morning, I don't always remember.
No, I know. It's not always so easy, is it? Yeah. Vicky did it a long time with the red ribbon. Also, the convex mirrors are not good to
Mm-hmm.
have in the house. And they're I mean, they're beautiful mirrors. I have one and I have it outside my front door. So um, there's not a pointed arrow quite, but somebody across the street has some sharp edges on their house. So kind of like a Bagua mirror, but it's convex. And it has an eagle on it. So better yet, even better. Yeah. There's have you seen Marie Diamond? She's a feng shui expert. You'd like her.
Oh, I'll have
She's
to look her up. Marie?
Marie Diamond. Yeah.
Okay.
She's really good with it, you guys. And she's been on Next Level Soul and she's got apps and stuff, but she's quite interesting. Denise asks, Nancy, would fool's gold rocks be good around your house? I have many of them from my dad.
That's pyrite. That's what I use for my grounding stone in my garden. Yeah, um, I bury them with intent and what I wanted them to do. They're grounding stones, so they should be buried in fours.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've got
Mhm.
one big one in my sunroom.
Well, if you've got one big one, then that's fine. But if
Yeah.
she's got a ton of them sitting around, she should be burying them in fours,
Oh,
like in the
wow.
four corners
Yeah.
or around something you want to create a grounded base for.
Yeah. It's Leyline, Ley, and it's
Mm-hmm.
who was it that you were talking about? Was it Corey? What's his name? The fella
You know
in
what?
oh, Johan. Okay.
Johan and then Tim Miller.
Okay.
Um, and if Tim Miller teaches grounding in earth. He lives on the last free land before you go into the Yorkshire wilds. His houses,
Oh.
and he lives. It's like they say, if you dig anywhere in England, you're going to find bodies. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been there for so long, and he lives out in the wilds of that. And he talks about how the ancients knew about the ley lines, and so a lot of the paths that they walk when they're taking their dead to the funeral places, they walk along ley lines.
Yeah,
In
definitely.
Britain, if you look up ley lines in England, Google has a function where people can say, I found a ley line, and they will draw it so you can see it. And there are people in England that measure their ley lines, the width of them every day, and where they are, and what's going on with them. And Rory Duff, who's really big on ley lines, he's written some books on ley lines.
That's who I was thinking of.
Rory is a little dry like the desert kind of person, but his stuff's fascinating. So when you dig through it, you have to kind of get yourself up. I'm looking at Rory. I sent a video of Rory talking about ley lines, and I thought it was just one of the fascinating shows ever. And the person I sent it to me wrote me back and said, I now have a new way to go to sleep. I mean, he was sitting in his chair and he was like dozing off. But I was married to an Englishman, so I'm used to that accent. I'm used to how they talk. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Gigi. How are you, honey? Yeah. He worked at Kennecott Copper. I felt blessed to have had them. Oh, that's beautiful, Denise. Good morning, BG. We're talking about ley lines and mirrors and stuff like that, BG, but we might get around to it. It's,
Well,
we have.
asked a question about where we are today, and we're all in a very good space.
Yeah.
We're in a very good space to begin to learn new things.
Yeah, I feel like it's an auspicious time. I mean, as much as everything's falling apart, and when we look outside, it's really auspicious right now for a lot of people. And I'm not discounting people that don't have Social Security, that are worried about that and whatnot. But
I
there's
got my
lots of
check
good
early.
things. Right? See?
And you know what? I think they're pumping them out. The second
Yeah.
you can get the next one, they're getting it to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I was sort of amazed. So
I like that word, Medusa, precipice. Yeah, we're definitely at the precipice.
well, think about it. What's the first card in the tarot deck?
The Fool, right?
Fool. And he's standing on the precipice. And where he goes is guided by his spirit.
Yeah.
So,
I see that's mirror work right there, Sally.
right.
It's not falling apart, it's falling together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Seeing what things are truly there. That's why when people want to meet their twin flames, it's not always a walk in the park.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't understand why I wouldn't. First of all, I kind of question anyone who wanted to be my twin flame, but you know, I don't know how you would. It's not always a pleasant experience to meet someone that is all sides of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard to feel good about things, and excited, but we're watching ourselves be excited, so it's different, right? There she is. Hello, Miss Kelly. Callie Wheeler. Yeah, and Callie works a lot with energy. She works with, not the lines, but the what do I wanna call it? The chords.
Chords, okay.
Same thing, right?
Well, what we're talking about is energy expressing itself in a way so we can comprehend what it's doing to us.
Yeah, yeah, Diana, those flared can be so strong. Have to laugh at how much more grounded can be when the magnetic force of Earth keeps your feet from moving. Molasses in January, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, lots of heavy, heavy days. So sorry about all the noise, you guys. I've got somebody working on the house today, and so Tyler is also working because it's his
Keeping you
job.
knowledgeable that this person's walking around our house.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, excuse me. I'll be right back, you guys.
Okay. This is where I was told I get to vamp because Teri has to go deal with house people. I'm just trying to focus on me and my connection with Source. Retired female Army veteran managing my sadness and lifting up my light. Um, yeah, I mean, it's sad to see. It's sad to see the way we used to live go away. But for me, someone who lives in the South, I wasn't raised here. And I was raised in land of Lincoln. So you come down to where they're still fighting the Civil War. It's like a whole nother thing. And people are really having to face the racism that has been a part of this country for such a long time. And when I ran political campaigns, we're going into politics briefly. It's just life experience, not the other stuff. I worked primarily with minority candidates, and they would sort of forget that I was there, and I got to see and hear in a way I would not have been able to in my generation to get an understanding of what was going on in this country and what's happening to I had a friend who he grew up down here. He grew up in West Texas, and he has had a very difficult time because all of his friends were MAGA or people he'd hung on to their friendship for a long time, or he doesn't want to say, I don't know these people because they're MAGA now. And he wrote a poem about how he'd finally let them go. And I was utterly amazed because that's what I used to tell him. Don't talk to him. And it's a cleansing process. But as you know, when you get sick, sometimes it takes a while to get over the illness. And let's see if I can find. I can't find his poem. I almost printed it out to read today, but his is about all of a sudden the freedom he had when he didn't have to walk that tightrope anymore. And he's 3 years younger than I am, so he's in his early 70s. And he's talking about walking away from a lot of people and a lot of stuff that he thought he needed. And it was like finally, if you've watched this whole saga with him, you can see the day the light came on. And he's an incredibly intuitive person. He has died twice on a surgical in a surgical suite and been brought back to life. And the last time when he woke up, he said, I didn't want to come back. And he said, but they told me I had to. And now he's back, and he doesn't want the hatred. He doesn't want the jealousy. He doesn't want, and what was worrying him was he was disappointing his friends. And I said, what are they doing to you? You know? And that's kind of what you need to do. You need to go find your own tribe. When they're talking about finding your own tribe now, it's really important. And I think pretty much anybody who's watching this is finding their own tribe and getting along and finding people to get along with. After the election, I know I caught some criticism, and it's okay. Because I said, I'd look at the news long enough to say, yep, it's still going the wrong way. And I'd go back and I watched Antiques Roadshow. And there's 19 seasons of it, guys. And I watched all 19 seasons. And because you watch people going out and you learned a lot of history, you learned talking about how to survive this crap. And I also watched The Repair Shop, which is also on YouTube, which is a bunch of people all getting together and helping people resurrect their history and salvage pieces of their history that they want to hold on to. And you watch all these people work collaboratively when you're in a world full of people who are trying to tear at each other. But like I said, if you write down the thing that bugs you today, and then you write it out, and does it work? No. And that's cutting the cords. That's right. And you get filled with new energy.
Yeah. Are you guys talking about relationships? Or
we're talking about how I escaped into a different world to not participate in the fear.
yeah, that's a big one for everybody. And I have a lot of friends that are really in the fear. And then I have friends that are really in the frenzy too, which it's kind of very similar, but it's different.
I had friends saying, well, you're telling us to go walk and be part of these. Well, I can guarantee you, if you're out walking in a demonstration, you're going to be surrounded by people who have the same values you have. And then you're going to feel totally liberated and free. Back in 2016, when the orange thing won the first time, I had a friend, he didn't leave his house for a week. And we finally, when he quit, he gave that up and he came in. He was talking to me, he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I said, well, there's going to be a march in a couple days in downtown Dallas about this. And he said, I can't go to a march. I mean, first of all, he is physically not an imposing person. Okay. He's kind of diminutive. He's like as tall as I am. And I said, yeah, you can. And he said, but I won't know anyone who's there. And I said, you'll be there 5 minutes and you'll have more friends than you ever knew you had. So he talked a friend of his into going with him. And they went down. Now, mind you, these were people who had always been the kind of people when you're having a political event, you invite them to have the wine and cheese and meet a candidate. But the real getting out there and on the streets, they don't do that. And he went and he marched that one time. And then last I heard, I mean, he marched all the way through COVID. I mean, he never stopped. And during COVID, he and a bunch of his friends got together and they realized there's a part of town in Dallas where a lot of people don't have cars. And they were creating large voting booths, early voting places you could get to. So he and his friends posted things at libraries and in bars and stuff in that part of town and said, sign up if you need a ride. And he and his friends were responsible for getting over 300 people to the polls that would have gotten there otherwise. And he is still now active in that kind of stuff. And this is a guy who his mind was in the right place. He just didn't do anything and he had the opportunity to make a difference. So I'm just saying, if you can go to a walk, if you can write a letter, every time Scott got 2 letters in Wisconsin during the Supreme Court race that were from out of state saying, please take your Supreme Court race seriously. He also had friends who'd gotten letters people had written from out of state. And he said, this was like, I mean, Scott, who I read with on Sundays, he said he knew it was important. But he said that was really interesting that people would take their time from another state. And he talked to a neighbor who had gotten the similar letters, who said that really impressed her. And she was going to make damn sure not only was she going to go, but she was going to take everybody that she could think of to go, because it was that important and they were getting noticed. And it's not something that's going to slip under the rug. Yes, sometimes we step out and do something good. It matters that our souls, for our own souls, and that for others to see it. And I agree, animals have no political issues. But, somebody did. Jen, Visionary Gal, got a postcard. We're talking about people that got postcards in Wisconsin during the Supreme Court race from out of state. They said all of a sudden struck them how important this was to everybody.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, we're voting tomorrow here. So
on what?
Well, one of the things is on education. They're trying to lower how much education we use. They're trying to take some of the monies out of that. and pay for a new city jail that's going to be $1 million per inmate. And right now it's 15,000 a year per child in our schools. So
Well, in Texas, you know how they calculate how many prisons they're going to need? They check the reading scores of fourth graders. And for the number of people who cannot effectively read, they figure 20% of them are going to end up in prison. So they build enough cells to accommodate them. And they've never run it. Their numbers have never been wrong. So instead of, why don't we teach these kids how to read so they can function? We're going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the prison system is one of the huge, horrible things that we do to our people. For sure. Yeah. Huge, horrible.
Speaking of the bondsman, the bonding system is horrible.
Oh my gosh, right? That's crazy. That and payroll and payroll loans and car loans and all that.
Yeah, all that got wiped out or taken away or very limited. They're all on their way back.
Yeah. Yeah. They're coming. They're coming around.
No, they're not.
Jean.
They're going to try to come.
Oh, I mean, it's coming around that they're leaving. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm still a little flustered from having to go help find tiles for the tile guy.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, no, we're good. We got it.
Oh, good.
I knew exactly where they were. Yeah, the whole system is changing, Medusa. Yeah. Warrior Widow, how could I fix my neighbor's bad line to make them happier and nicer to me?
I'd have to, Warrior Widow, you'd have to look up some ley line information. And there are information on how to take crystals and redirect the ley lines out to where they're not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah. And the other thing is there might be a reason why they're there, a lesson to learn. So even though we can do things to try to help people, it doesn't mean that they're going to accept that help.
No.
Yeah.
Trust me, my friend I told you about that wrote, I'll bring the poem next time we meet, about finding himself. Honest to God, I sent that to somebody in our community who's also met him. And she said, he wrote that? People do change.
Yeah. Oh, Sandra, the school system is based on the prison system.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Interesting, Sandra. And it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, the school system is based on creating workers for factories, for capitalism. So, and that happened in England. I mean, when they started teaching kids, it was just to teach them to read. The only reason they began investing in teaching children how to read, and you can see this if you watch Antiques Roadshow, they should talk a lot about this, was because it helped them in the factories. It meant that the factories were more productive. Otherwise, they didn't care if they could read or not. But the oldest lending library in the Western world that was privately put together, was put together by some coal miners in Yorkshire. And it's still standing. And they put it together because they wanted their children to have a way out. And this is all a whole story about how they did it. And they raised it out of their union dues. And the union that put that together, the workforce that put that together, is still a functioning union. And their union hall looks like state legislature. I mean, it really is. They value the work that people do there. And when the mines closed, they helped all the people. They helped the ones who could transition and wanted to. Think about that. There have been periods of time when whole ways of life disappeared.
Margaret Thatcher.
Right. They closed the mines, but the people were there to say there's another way. There were people freaking out.
Yeah.
And so if you read enough history, you see some of the massive changes we've gone through. And we made it.
Yeah. This is actually going to be good in the end.
Yeah, it's hard for us to see it when we're in the swamp.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
beating the critters off our legs.
And I heard somebody else talking about this the other day, even about like during the, not that we're going through that, but things are going to look really weird or odd, but during the Great Depression in the United States, and how a lot of people prospered. And not just prospered financially, but they prospered as families coming together
Mm-hmm.
and doing things. So there were hard times too, for sure. And I think there'll be very interesting times that we'll go through. But yeah,
And
yeah, Kelly, same thinking.
hopefully in the next few years, we'll be much more careful about the leaders that we put into power.
Yeah. A period of transition, right, Garnet? Yeah. Garnet's coming here from the UK today. So
Yeah, Garnet, you're the history of your country and the working class, the emergence of the working class. And my husband was a Cockney who ended up getting a degree in physics from the University of London because they realized we can't waste any brain power. After World War II, they could not waste any brain power. They needed every person who could help Britain move ahead.
yeah.
Unfortunately, he disliked the class structure so much he moved here. But
It's interesting, isn't it? And now I look at when I go to visit the UK and other places that they really have a lifestyle where they work so that they can go on vacation. A lot of them travel. And I'm not saying every single person, but it's kind of part of the culture that you're going to have your holidays and you're going to have a whole month off minimum. And when you get off work, you're off work. You know, you're going to the pub or you're going to watch cricket or
right
you're pretty active.
there, I
So,
saw a short cartoon about a woman where they were lecturing them that they couldn't have their personal phones on their desks at work.
yeah.
And then the woman who was doing the lecture, she said, "Oh, could you please stay?" And there was a young woman came up and she goes, "Yeah." She says, "It's a problem." She said, "I don't leave my phone out." And she said, "No, no, no. We've been trying to call you at night because we've had problems come up and we needed to see, what's going on." And the young woman said, "Well, I have the same contract with my family that I have with you. When I'm with my family, I don't have a second phone that's a work phone." She said, "If you want to pay for a second phone that's a work phone, and if you want to pay me my hourly wages for the time you're asking me to work in the evening, then we can talk about it." And the woman goes, "Well, no, well, I don't understand." And she said, "It's the same policy as you have here. I can't keep track of my children. I can't call their school. I can't do any of those things during the day. And I respect that because you pay me. But if you're going to take my time away from my family, you're going to pay me for that."
Yeah. Yeah.
And most work, see, I'm a snot. I'd do that. I used to do that. When I worked at the airline, I had a thing I did every morning to pull over records. It's not worth explaining the technicalities, but and they used to say, "You were 20 minutes late." And I said, "Were you up at 5:30 this morning with Tulsa finding out that United had done a giant download?" And I had to get all that going while I was getting my kids ready for work, for school. And so I just come and go when I wanted to. I'm like, fire me about it and I'll prove that you're wrong. So
Nice. Nice. All right. Well, we're at that time. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Teri,
Well, the
for
lesson,
doing
yes,
your
thank
work.
you, Jerry, thank you. And the lesson on this is the solution is us.
Yeah.
And we have to look in the mirror.
Yeah. We've got this. We really do. And we've done it before.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, have a great afternoon and a great week. What do you have coming up, Nancy Jean?
Thursday, I'm going to be doing the thing at 1:00 with Voices of the Akashic Records, Deborah's show.
Oh, I love that show.
And the one you just did with her, where you just sort of get on and talk about what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to build a grid on that show. I'm going to show you my personal grid. I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to explain the numbers. So if you're really interested in looking about a grid, that's where I'm going to be talking about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds like fun. I'm going to be doing what tomorrow I'm interviewing with Joan of Angels. So
Ooh,
that'll be fun. And the dream show.
oh,
So
cool.
yeah, it'll be interesting. And then we've got Sharon coming in, my Irish lass from Australia.
Oh,
So
good.
she's my
I have my regular 1 o'clock show tomorrow,
oh
but I'm
good.
not sure altogether what it's going to be about yet. I may
Nice.
just do garden readings. Maybe if you're looking for a place to come get a reading, I may do garden readings.
Oh, cool. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.